Welcome to Investors Hangout, brought to you by Aditya Sun Life Mutual Fund and Value Research. Today's episode is a senior citizen special. A lot has happened, and particularly in the budget 2018, provisions have been made to take care of two important aspects. One, related to the health of the senior citizens, and two, about the income, the dependable income that they can earn. What are these provisions? We will discuss with the CEO of Value Research, Dhirendra Kumar. Dhirendra, welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Rajesh Klek, and my first question to Dhirendra is on the four provisions which Budget 2018 has made for senior citizens. What are these? Would you like to just...
Yeah, one key thing was that, 50,000 rupees interest exemption.
Okay.
The other is, last year a new scheme was introduced, which was Pradhan Mantri Vyay Vandana Yojana, which yields about 8.3%. That limit, the amount of money that you could invest there has been increased to 15 lakh rupees from erstwhile 7.5 lakh rupees. So that's also useful, that, investors in this age bracket are risk averse. And this is widely available. It's almost like senior citizen savings scheme. And then the exemption limit on health insurance plan. Now you can actually pay a premium of 50,000 rupees per annum, and that will also be a deductible expense for them. And then one thing useful that has come in this budget is that if you spend 1 lakh rupees on any critical illness, that will also be an exempt expenditure.
Okay.
So that, deduction limit, deductible expense for senior citizens. So these are, all four of them combined together. They are useful. They will reduce the pain a little bit. But the real risk which, most senior citizens face today, the risk of outliving their savings, that they will have to take care of themselves. They have to configure themselves about it. These things will reduce their, pain or difficulty a little bit, not substantially.
But this is a scary thought, outliving your savings.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that in a while. But before that, just delve deeper into these four provisions that you just mentioned. Two related to income and two related to health.
Yeah.
Okay. How is it? And you did mention SCSS, the Senior Citizen Savings Scheme. How is the PMVVY different from CSSS?
One is that, one is offered by Government of India. The Senior Citizen Savings Scheme is run by National Savings Organization. Both are reasonably safe because, they carry the sovereign, not, LIC, the other scheme is operated by LIC.
Okay.
But that apart, there is a tacit understanding that, it is done at the behest of Government of India, and Life Insurance Corporation is government owned, and it's, providing this return. There isn't much difference in the level of riskiness or amount of return. Senior Citizen Savings Scheme, that actually provides you, if you have 30 lakh rupees to invest, if you can invest 15 lakh rupees in both of them, might as well, because this is the safest that you can get in India. They are both yielding 8.3%. And if you just have to choose one, I would go with, Senior Citizen Savings Scheme, because it turns out to be more liquid. You can take your money out in case of emergency by paying a penalty. And it's also widely available. For that, you go to LIC, and for this, you go to any bank, any nationalized bank, or in most other banks. Convenience as well. Okay. Otherwise, in terms of safety and return, there isn't much difference, because investors tend to expect absolute safety, guaranteed return. So that goes without saying.
And what about the FD? What's your take on the 50,000 increase in the fixed deposits?
It's a small privilege. It's a small benefit. It is a benefit, but it's not a substantial thing, because when I look at 50,000 rupees interest income on a deposit, that will be about 6 lakh rupees deposit, which will yield this much return. And the amount of deposit that you need to make, to earn, to earn interest, to sustain yourself. I would say that, in a city like Delhi, if you have a house and if you are healthy and you are old, and then you need at least, anywhere between 30 to 50,000 rupees for basic sustenance. That will be 6 lakh rupees income. A 6 lakh rupee income will require, a much larger deposit. And if that will be taxable, and, all this money from which you are deriving the income, this has been accumulated after paying taxes for a lifetime. So I think, senior citizens should be looked upon a little differently. I think, the government should look at them a little liberally. Maybe at some point they will look at it. Right now they are starved of, they're looking for avenues to raise resources. But I feel that, senior citizen of this kind, who is actually fending for himself, because he's not a government employee. When we look at the government employees who are in their retirement phase, they are being completely taken care of. They are being completely taken care of by a pension which is inflation adjusted, which gets revised with the pace, which gets revised with, all the pay commissions. Most state government and central government, the central government health scheme, if you look at CGHS, it is able to, 30,000 rupees lifetime premium, and you are being taken care of for a lifetime, for all the critical illness, everything, without any upside. So I think, private citizens who take care of themselves, they have saved for all their life, and they have paid taxes. They need to be, they need to be looked at little liberally. And people on the margin, maybe, a threshold beyond 20 lakh, 30 lakh, 40 lakh rupees of, interest income, they should be taxed. But, looking at people who are making, 5 lakh, 6 lakh rupees, because there is another problem with this generation of senior citizens. They are not used to assuming risk. In all their life, while they were saving and investing, their avenue was PPF, which was fixed income. Their avenue was their own provident fund. Their avenue was, fixed deposit. Market was not accessible. If market became, it was actually not a very safe place to invest. Most people burned their fingers, never to come back again. Market was not democratized in a manner it is happening today.
Correct.
So they never had the experience of, optimizing their return, understanding the risk. The level of education was also not there. So I think, they need to be looked at differently. And but you really need to take care of yourself. You need to plan things yourself, little more methodically. It's not too late. If you have the capital, try and optimize your return. Try and optimize your return in a tax efficient manner. It can well be done. Because the way these concessions are getting extended as a privilege, I think it should have been my rightful.
Okay. So that was the income aspect of it. What about the provisions of health?
Health, I like the whole thing that up to 50,000 rupees, because things are getting institutionalized, and 50,000 rupees premium for health insurance for a couple in old age should be adequate for medical emergencies. Okay. But that health insurance of that kind can only take care of hospitalization expense. Today we come across a situation where you don't get admitted in a hospital, but you will still have some need of ongoing spend on your health. So that it doesn't take care of that, but nevertheless it's better than not having one. And the critical illness thing, I think it is good. Increasing the limit, deductible expense on critical illness up to 1 lakh, I would expect that this should be far more liberalized, because we are talking
1 lakh now.
What is 1 lakh? And then critical illness, you don't start with with a budget. You just get into a mire of expenditure, and that too, I think it's a failure of our governments to provide adequate healthcare in many states in a form which is which is paid for by the taxpayers too.
Okay, so these are the two categories, in fact, the 4 provisions that we talked about. Now the next is, my question is very critical, and I cannot change the direction of the wind, but I can surely adjust my sails to always reach my destination. So related to this is the question, what should be the investment strategy for senior citizens now?
They have to embrace risk, and embrace risk carefully in a fairly measured way. embrace risk doesn't mean that you become reckless. First and foremost, invest a little bit to an extent in these PMVVY or senior citizen savings scheme, to the extent that you need the essential support of guaranteed fixed income. It entirely depends. Everybody needs a different plan depending on his scale, and the scale could be different. There could be if you are getting pension from the government, maybe you don't need income. But for all other people, if you have any other income avenue, you might have a house from which you are deriving a rent. That could be that is another avenue. Think carefully about it. And in fact, the rental income is not a bad avenue, because mostly it turns out to be an inflation adjusted income. As with rising costs, you are able to even though the worth of the property might be anything, but your whatever rental income you get used to, that gets adjusted with inflation, rising prices, and so despite lower yield, it can still be going up. That apart, you should look at you should carefully budget how much you need every month essentially, and put as much money in that senior citizen savings scheme, or add the rental income or any other avenue of income that you regular income that you have. Rest of the money, all the money from which you do not need to derive that regular income, that needs to be invested in some kind of asset allocation, which is coupled with equity. If that is a large amount and you are unlikely to need that, maybe a balanced fund, or maybe a equity income fund, or maybe a growth option of a MIP. Why I am saying this? Because these are a dynamic allocate, they are frozen allocation. A balanced fund is almost like 2/3 equity, 1/3 fixed income. If you are early in your retirement, equity income is 1/3 equity and 2/3 fixed income, or MIP is just 10-15% equity and rest is fixed income. So they are different, and you don't have to manage it. The fund manager will take care of it. When equity goes up, he will rebalance, so there won't be any tax implication. You run the possibility of beating inflation, or at least matching inflation, because the real risk is that if you put all your money in the fixed income avenue from which you derive the income and consume it, then your capital remains constant. When your capital remains constant, the need for inflation adjusted income over time, that will not be fulfilled. So when you have some other additional capital which is growing at a higher rate, you are not withdrawing from that, whatever that amount be. So you need to really work on this plan. Derive your income from something guaranteed. Rest of the money invest, which is able to grow with time, linked to the inflation. And if you are able to match inflation or beat inflation, you will have enough capital to support a rising income. Else you will your need for higher income, if that has to be derived from that frozen capital, your capital will be eaten in your lifetime.
Okay, so what percentage should that be? There
isn't a thumb rule, and it requires careful planning for each individual, because it is entirely a function of your need for income and how much capital you have, which varies from every person, from person to person. But I think if I have to really work on a calibrated plan, and if you are really short on capital, I would say that a conservative plan will be that don't even go for that fixed income avenue. Put your money in a calibrated way, in a period of 6 months to 3 years, depending on your scale. Put your money in a frozen allocation, something like a MIP or equity income fund, which is a conservative allocation.
So 25% of that?
No, all of it.
All of it?
All of it. And because only 25% of that money will be in equity, but spread it over a period of time so that you don't, you eliminate the risk of catching a market high. And then have a withdrawal plan of just anywhere between 4 to 5%. 4 to 5% withdrawal plan from such a fund, from such an investment, will ensure that you will have your capital will be protected. It will be able to protect its worth.
Okay.
Not only it will protect its worth, because of the rising worth of your capital, you will be able to increase your income over time. So 2 years from now, you can give yourself an increment of 10%, and that
4 becomes, say, 6.
No, 4 remains 4, but your capital becomes larger. So, so the 4 of a larger amount will actually become more.
Okay.
So, in that sense, if your capital goes up by 10%, so your income from that increased capital will be higher. So, if you had a lakh of rupees of capital and you are earning 4,000 rupee, and that 1 lakh rupee becomes 2 lakh rupees, then that 4 lakh rupees, 4,000 rupees will actually become 8,000 rupees. So because the need for increasing your capital base, that will be met, and if you are actually doing a 4 to 5% withdrawal rate, you will eliminate the possibility of consuming too much of your capital. And over time, as and when it increases, as and when your capital grows, then then your income rises. And so to begin with, be conservative with your withdrawal. You will have to assume this risk because all other fixed income avenue will not help you beat inflation or protect the worth of your capital.
And how do they circumvent through the LTCG?
Oh, LTCG, this plan is also very LTCG compliant or efficient. It will be able to, because the whole idea is that when you make a deposit and when you get this interest income, it is recognized as your income and it is taxed. And now the finance minister has said that up to 50,000 rupees I won't tax you. Okay. In this case, what happens is you are actually taking your capital out. The first in first out principle is being implemented. So initially you don't have much of a gain, or your gain is on the overall investment, but it will actually, from a taxation point of view, it will look like you are actually taking your money back, and which is true accounting wise. So your tax liability will be very minimal, and only over a period of time when you have larger gains, then that tax will get triggered. But after 2-3 years, you will have the privilege of being indexed, getting a lower taxation rate. And anyway, long-term capital gains is 10%. It is far lower than the marginal tax rate, because it could be 20%, 30%. So even in the most crudest form, taxation of capital gains is concessional than income. So that itself is good. And then by following this withdrawal plan, you will be able to save on taxes substantially. In initial years, it could be virtually nothing.
So I hope you paid attention to what Dhirendra has said. The best preparations for tomorrow is by doing your best today. So go for it, what Dhirendra has said, and ensure that your future is safe. We move now on to the Q&A part of this episode. And the first question is by Aditya. He writes that my mother retired 3 years back and receives monthly pension of rupees 25,000. She invested 15% of her retirement funds in fixed deposits, 55% in balanced fund, and the rest in liquid funds with STP to balanced funds. Should we add more FD given that interest up to rupees 50,000 is now exempt?
No, I think one should not be guided primarily with the view of, if there is a need for income, maybe. If your mother needs more than 25,000 rupees a month to supplement her pension income, then you should consider that, because the need for periodic regular income. If that is not the need, then I would suggest that if this is the money which you would like to maximize the return, don't get carried by this long-term capital gains, or don't get distracted by this long-term capital gains tax. Maximize the return on your money. If 25,000 rupees is adequate income, then move all this money to balance fund. Have a little bit of fixed deposit as an emergency fund for herself. Besides that, all that money should be in balance fund, because maximizing return and accessible, if your money is invested and growing very well, and on the larger growth, compromising on lower return and compromising on settling with lower return just because you will be able to get a tax exemption on the 50,000 rupees interest is not a great idea, because balance fund will be able to beat inflation, will be able to maximize your return. You should do it only if it is needed.
Okay. The next question is from Rahul, who says that how are NPAs tier 2 withdrawals taxed?
They will be taxed exactly like a mutual fund. Okay. Because now tier 2 will be taxed exactly any debt fund. That is how it was taxed earlier, and that is how it will be taxed now.
Cool. So Bala Subram has written in, and it's an interesting one. Is the LTCG tax calculated script by script basis or an overall portfolio? Will we be able to know the LTCG tax liability from value research?
Yes, it will be done on a on a security by security basis. So if you have invested in a specific fund, and if you have, even if you are doing SIP, it will be calculated on respective investment. So you will have to do it on an individual investment basis. Okay. Then comes, how we will do it at values, how we will help you calculate that. Yes, we are in our portfolio tracker, we are going to create a column that what was the value on 31st of January 2018 and calculate. So we will create two columns in the capital gains view, that what is your tax exempt profit from this investment and what is the taxable long term capital gain, because right now for next 1 year it will all be short term capital gains getting created. All the gains on your investments including shares and mutual funds from 1st of February 2018, for the first 365 days it will be short term, and after that it will be long term. So we will tell you what is the taxable short term capital gains and what is the taxable long term capital gains tax and what is the tax exempt. So all your gains, there will be three parts to it: exempt profits, short term capital gains taxable profit, and long term capital gains. So very soon you will have this enhancement in our portfolio tracker.
So do avail of this and enjoy.
And it's a free service. It's a free service.
It's a free value addition from Value Research. ML Call has written in saying, is standard deduction of ₹40,000 also available to senior citizens who have only interest income?
Yes, this is another additional benefit, and this is also available to senior citizens who only have interest income.
Okay. And Pushpa Sheel has written, I'm a 70-year-old lady. At this age, what percentage of my savings should be in bank FDs, mutual funds and equities?
There isn't a thumb rule. You should total up all your assets, all your financial assets, and look for, do some estimation of what is the likely money that you need to sustain yourself every month. You should also provide liberally for the emergency needs, having that money in a deposit just in case, you know about your health conditions or the support system that you will have. Nobody knows it better. So do some estimation and err on the side of caution. Be little liberal with that. If you think that your emergency need should be 3 lakh, maybe provide for 5 lakh if you have the window. So once you have taken care of your income needs and the emergency need, rest of the money should be in long-term investment, because that is long-term investment. That will have two advantages. One is that you will be able to supplement your income requirement as it will rise with inflation. So 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if you need 15% more income, that money will be able to provide you that long-term investment, growth-oriented investment will be able to provide you that kind of support. That apart, assuming that you don't have income, you will simply leave a larger state for your successors. So, optimizing return on your investment should be an objective, should be an important objective. You should keep it in mind. Just being risk averse for the sake of it is not a good idea. You should try and reduce your risk as much as possible with your behavior, with your discipline, with your grit, with your with your method of investing, with diversification. And don't get greedy about it, don't speculate with the money. But equity per se is not a risk. The way you invest in equity actually increases the risk. If you are methodical about it, you will be able to, and optimizing return on your investment is not optimizing return on your investment is a risk, because if you don't optimize your return, then you run the risk of simply having less money when you don't have any avenue of supplementing your income in old age.
Planning, huh? It's all about planning.
It is an important thing, and it should not be looked upon, because most people look at markets or equity market as something which is speculative, has to be tried out, mostly it doesn't work. No, this is the only avenue to actually optimize your return or beat inflation, and most people have experienced in the past, which is not of a very desirable kind. So be at it, understand this, understand little bit about it, and if you follow these basic rules, I think things will be very nicely in place.
And I think the mindset also has to change, that mindset about fixed deposits, that's it, that's the best thing. Buy gold, perhaps that will help me.
Yeah, in fact,
one has to get out of that.
All of it is wrong, and all of it has been, somehow being, just being, reinforced by the market environment, because the jewelers will tell you, or the real estate. So a lot of things are changing, and if investors are, or savers are realizing it. That things did not work out the way they expected, the way they expected, and being methodical about these things is crucial. It is very important for your financial well-being at a time when you won't have enough time to really mend your ways. So and understanding this conceptually, without that conceptual understanding, it looks like a game. That because if you look at many a times of course these questions are far more objectively written, but many a times people ask me the most popular question which we get, and for all these years including now, is that where to invest now, which is the best thing to invest now. That is a wrong question. The best place to invest is what will fulfill your need, and that changes for every person. There could be a young person who needs to invest. We will assume that he needs to invest for the long run, but his investment could be for the very short run, for some consumption in the next 1.5 years. And there are old people who need to really invest for the long run because their need for income is met elsewhere. So all their investment could still be long term. So it entirely depends on you. You need to think about it, plan it methodically, have this hierarchy of things, and term insurance, health insurance, term insurance if you have financial dependence, health insurance definitely, your emergency fund, your need for income fund if you are in retirement. You don't need that fund if you are working, and then everything is long-term investment.
You mentioned term insurance, and there is a question by Srivastava. He says, does subscribing to term insurance for a minimal amount make sense for a senior citizen?
No. If you don't have any financial dependence, you don't need term insurance. Look at term insurance as a cost. Look at term insurance as an expenditure. And if you have a financial dependent, if you have some source of income which will stop and somebody else depends on that, then by all means consider that. But many insurance companies also make term insurance very expensive for old people buying it. So term insurance for senior citizens could be very expensive. Also, very few people will provide it. A small amount might be available, might be worthwhile. If you think, but it entirely depends. Mostly, if you do not have financial dependence, you don't need it. Only in case you have, and that will be in case you don't have enough capital. If you don't have enough capital and you are actually getting income from some other avenue, and that will come to a stop. If you are not around, then maybe
you need to have
it.
Okay, Sudhir has written in saying there are state government guaranteed NCDs and bonds, mainly from power sector, which offer IRR of about 9.5% if held to maturity. They pay out interest quarterly or half yearly. Are these a good option to consider for a part of the debt corpus if one is ready to hold till maturity of 6 to 14 years?
Yes, there are some tax-free bonds, not only from the power sector, but from some other companies as well. And but they are very hard to find. If you already have them, hold them. These tax-free bonds yielding 9.5% are outstanding. They came at a time when when interest rates were reasonably high, and there were not too many takers for this. All these bonds were issued after the global financial crisis. So if you have them, hold them. If you can lay your hands on, have it. But today, if you buy it from the market, it will not yield you 9.5%. The market price of these bonds will be such that the yield on these bonds will be much lower. You pay a higher premium for a higher yielding bonds today. But if you have them, hold them, and it should be considered as a good fixed income fund, fixed income allocation, if you are going to hold it till maturity.
The last question now. Narasimha has written, which category of debt-oriented funds is preferable in place of bank fixed deposits?
Normally one will be tempted to talk about the sophisticated the sophisticated kind of fixed income funds available, but I would like you to keep it very simple. Don't move beyond short-term debt fund. If your fixed deposit was going to be a very short-term nature, 1 year, 6 months, maybe if it was 6 months, consider liquid fund. If it was up to 1 year deposit or 1.5 year deposit, consider ultra short-term debt fund. If it was going to be a 3 year deposit, 5 year deposit, stop at short-term debt fund. Don't venture anywhere else, because the ups and downs of the market, the likelihood of interest rates going up. When interest rates go up, bond prices go down, and you will actually witness a loss.
Right.
Navigating through debt funds in a manner that you are not faced with an interim loss in between is important. So, short-term debt fund.
Okay. Well, that's all we have in today's Investors Hangout. Keep your face always towards the sunshine, and the shadows will fall behind you. Take note of what Dhirendra has told you, and continue to enjoy life with well invested funds. Bye for now. Take care.